friends on YouTube, including my very illustrious enemies. Once again, this is Roosevelt with another episode of Roosevelt Sounds Off. And this is going to be, I believe, Roosevelt Sounds Off Part 15. And today, I have a special guest on my program, Nadine Keys, who's been a good friend of mine for years. And I call this particular segment of Roosevelt Sounds Off A Tale of Two Countries Reloaded. The reason why I'm calling it that is because she's here in response to one of my programs from A Tale of Two Countries. I believe that's part 12, to where I was talking about the difference in between the rich and the poor, and how the rich live in big homes and drive big fancy cars, but in poor neighborhoods, you have the poor neighborhoods that are all torn up and broken down. And I feel that all rich people and all poor people should all be the same, and rich neighborhoods and poor neighborhoods should look the same. And I even talked a little bit about how that spirit has crept into the church because of certain prosperity preachers. And right now I want to ask Nadine to chime in on that. Now, when you did see the video, what made you respond favorably to the video? Because you said that it was a whole lot of things that you did agree with within the video.
Well, what made me respond is basically I definitely agree with what you said. I definitely liked what you had to say. And I do feel that a lot of ministers could care less about what's going on with the people that they're preaching to every Sunday. I do feel that, you know, that basically it's about, well, of course, about money.
Yeah, that's first and foremost.
Right, about what they can get out of the people. And while they worried about this, while the whole community that they church, in which their church sets, there's a lot of stuff going on there that they need to be dealing with.
Especially, I noticed too, I mean, it's quite strange that you would say it, especially like in the black community, because it seems like in the black communities, we have more churches than in the white community and in the Latin community. I mean, you could go into like the average black area around Inglewood or, you know, Lawndale and, you know, other black areas and find like 5 or 6 or more churches in a block radius. But the crime rate in those areas is just like higher than ever.
Yes, that's because the pastors don't really care. They're not involved with their community. One thing I like about the church that I attend is the pastor does care about what's going on in the community. As a matter of fact, yesterday we just did like a little march, you know, due to the police shootings that have been happening. We did a little march to show that basically all lives matter. Yeah. And
especially black life or whatever life it is.
That's right.
And maybe without giving a name, unless you really want to, what kind of denomination is the church that you attend?
It's called the UCC, United Church of Christ.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. United Churches of Christ. Yeah, I got a cousin of mine who's a minister in United Churches of Christ. And I know it's something that particular denomination is very, very liberal when it comes down to certain things, excuse me for saying so, even when it comes down to gay and lesbian relationships and gay marriage. I think it's just like very, very liberal. Is that something that kind of like favored you to join that church or anything like that, or no?
Well, yes. You know, it's way different than what I come up with. You know, like when you mention gay and lesbian things, that's something truly that when I was coming up in the churches I used to attend, they never talked about it. Never. And all we got is basically they talk about stories in the Bible and things like that. But we never was taught about, you know, that area, what you should do and what you should not do. They just didn't discuss it. So that's why I attend the church that I attend now, because it is discussed, and plus a lot of other things that's going on in the community too. But
but it's not discussed as a point of, and excuse me for saying that. And do you want me to say it, or do you want to say what connects you to the what they call the LGBT community, or would you say or no?
Well, actually, I'm bisexual,
Mm-hmm.
and I happen to be Christian on top of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe the same scriptures that everybody else read. I believe in Jesus as the Son of God, the Christ. Everything the Bible says about Christ, I believe it,
Mm-hmm.
and there's nothing changing that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just, nowadays, for me, I'm just much more freer to be more spiritual, whatever. I'm free to be my whole self.
Mm-hmm.
Not hide anything, and feeling like I don't belong, feeling like God doesn't love me
Mm-hmm.
due to the fact I am who I am.
Right, and the thing is, this stuff now, I just have to say it because I've never talked about or never dealt with this issue
Mm-hmm.
at all in any one of my programs, because I think that you said this ever since, I told you, we reconnected like over a year ago.
Right.
Because we had lost contact for a long time.
Yes.
But we reconnected over a year ago. I told you I was doing videos, and you said you pretty much watched every one so far that I have done and put on YouTube. But I have never ever dealt with the subject of gay and lesbian relationships.
Okay.
Because of one simple reason. It seems like nowadays, and definitely not trying to offend all of you all out there who could be involved in these kind of relationships, but I think that it's to the point now, and please excuse me for saying so,
Mm-hmm.
that it seems like the rights of gay and lesbian couples or relationships or that community or whatever, it supersedes the rights of everyone else, meaning
Mm-hmm.
that according to what they say in the country now, you have the right to be lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, or the Q means also questioning or whatever.
Right. Right.
But if someone comes along and disagrees with people within the gay or the LGBT community, then that person is labeled as a hater or, someone who's preaching bigotry and hatred. I mean, it's not even like that. I just think, that you have a right to maybe be whatever it is that you want to be. Because, at the end of the day, I know that we all have our different opinions about every single thing, but I know that God is the judge, and God will deal with you rightfully or wrongly according to what His Word says. Mm-hmm. And, that's you and your conscience. So, you have to do whatever it is that you believe, but I don't think that you or a whole community or certain people in the community, I'm not definitely going to say, I'm not going to label a whole community like that, mm-hmm. but should put everybody else down on because that, we might not like it or are against it, or, you got some people who are Christian who even say that I'm not against the people themselves, I'm just against the act or the mm-hmm. deed of it. Mm-hmm. So it's like, because I remember even a couple of years ago, there was one talk show host, Roland Martin. And Roland Martin, I guess he was watching the Super Bowl, and there was this underwear commercial on. And it was with Dave Beckham. And he made the comment, or he tweeted after he got through seeing the commercial, ladies, if your man gets excited over seeing a Dave Beckham underwear commercial, slap the shit out of him. And even though he didn't make any kind of reference to gay or lesbian, bisexual or transgendered or anything like that, he got fired, taken off the air and all of that kind of stuff because, the gay and lesbian community took that as being a direct insult against him. And he actually had to go on TV and actually apologize. And he's just now halfway coming back up and getting his job back. So it's like that. The community, the lesbian and gay community makes it harder on you if you were to say anything rightfully or wrongly against it. And do you believe that that is right for, the rights of one community mm-hmm. to, trump everybody else's rights?
Well, I believe that sometimes people do overreact.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to share a little bit of kind of what I went through not too long ago.
Oh, go ahead. Feel free.
Well, let's just say, like I said, I'm not going to call any names. Let's just say since we've been, since I've been married and everything, mm-hmm. we faced a little bit of discrimination where somebody was giving their opinions, basically saying that they don't tolerate it or don't entertain it, and that basically she would, do things and, hang out with my wife and not me. And it was hurtful because I'm like, first of all, that didn't even have to be said. And second of all, okay, we understand that you have your feelings about that, but it's no need to be disrespectful about it. So I think people do overreact, whether they for it or against it. People do have a tendency to overreact. And some stuff don't need to be said. That's how I feel about that.
And do you think that it's right and everything? Because I mean, it's like when we were kids, especially I'm a little bit older than you. I know when I was a kid, even when some of us boys used to get together and play around or whatever with each other, or like play fight or whatever, we used to call each other like certain words. I'm not going to say the full word, but I'm pretty sure you'll understand what I mean.
Right.
Using the S word. The S word is the word that refers to homosexuals. You know what I mean.
Right.
And, of course, the notorious F word.
Yes.
You know what I mean. I'm not talking about the four-letter F word either.
Oh, yeah.
I'm talking about that other F word.
Yes.
I mean, even though we know nobody was gay, nothing like that, but I mean, that's just how we used to play. But nowadays, it seems like the rights of the gay and lesbian community, it seems like you can't even say those kind of words, even in jest or even in joking anymore, because if a child were to say that, they could be, expelled from school.
Wow.
These days, because it's like they have so many, the community has so many rights now that you can't say anything, because it's like a zero tolerance, because as soon as you say something like that, they automatically consider it to be like a slur or some type of bigotry or whatever it is. And do you believe that that is right?
No, I really don't believe it. Matter of fact, you shouldn't say nothing against anybody that you don't want to say it about you. No matter if it's the gay community, straight community, religious community, or whatever. And that's the reason why I was kind of short in my comment about a little bit of what I've been through, because I do want to be respectful and not offend anybody. It's no call for it. So I don't think that's right. You shouldn't say nothing against anybody you don't want to say it against you.
So even little kids just like playing with each other and using that word, do you think that it's right that they should be expelled or suspended or kicked out of school or something?
Well, see, I really didn't know that. You telling me something. I really did not know that kids can be expelled from saying such things. Matter of fact, I don't think black folks should call each other niggas.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that all of us have used the word from time to time, because we get upset if somebody who was white or Latino called us the so-called N-word and everything. But sometimes you got to ask yourself the question: is it really right for any one of us to use the word?
It shouldn't be.
And a whole lot of people, they recently, there was riots because of the police shooting. In Missouri, and some of the people rioted. There was a couple of police cars set on fire and they burnt down like their community, and a whole lot of people have, even some black folks who I know, actually said when these people were rioting and looting, oh man, they rioted and looting, look at those niggas, because I guess they were using the N-word as a way to try to say the people were being ignorant or whatever. But I don't know if the word should be used at all, because the original term of the N-word, I don't think that it was meant to ignorant person. It was intended to be a racial term for blacks. So maybe none of us should probably use that word. And and with the whole church thing, in embracing the lesbian and gay community, I mean, what do you think that should be done about these kind of things? Because, according to what I have evidence and stuff of the scriptures that I have heard of and read all my life and that I have seen, in the way that, a whole lot of Christian people, including Christian ministers, feel, is that it is a sin. So what is your take about that? And I mean, do you think it's like a difference between the scriptures that I'm reading and you're reading?
Well, like I said earlier, I read the same Bible everybody else reads.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's not so much as a difference. It's just maybe people need to get the history of behind what's written there.
Mm-hmm.
Because in order for that to be put there, it had to be some reason why they wrote that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in that society, from what I heard people say, and it kind of makes sense. You know, this is what I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Not written in stone, no, this is what I believe.
So that means that what you're saying, not written in stone, meaning that you could be right or wrong, that it can be
Right.
argued or whatever. Or
Right.
debated.
This is what I believe. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
trying to push my views on nothing else. In the Jewish society, if I'm not mistaken, they wanted people to have children. They wanted, because if you had a bunch of children back then, you was considered blessed. And please don't have a house full of sons.
Well, I mean, because it is saying the scriptures to be fruitful and multiply.
Right. Mm-hmm.
That's why.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you know, if you had kids, like if a woman didn't have kids back then, it was that she was really talked about. She was, you know, they said a lot of things about her all because she couldn't have kids.
And it's the same thing I noticed even, I mean, it's not as bad as it was then, but I notice even today it's still somewhat that way. Because
Right.
I mean, even though I'm a man, I still get put down because I don't have
Have
any
any
kids, especially at my age, 40, or be 41, Lord willing, in a couple of more weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't have any children, so that's like a big stigma. Everybody always wants to know why. Oh man, you 40, don't have any children?
I get that.
I mean, it's almost like they look at you almost like you got like a third eye in the middle of your forehead or something. And it's like, especially, and I know it's a bigger stigma with women, especially women who are like 35 and older or whatever.
Right. Yeah, it is. I think I even had a great auntie to call me an old maid before. This is when I wasn't even, you know, married to anybody.
Yeah, I remember that from when you was a teenager. Lord have
Yes,
mercy.
I was called an old maid, and I'm like, okay, you know, I guess in their opinion, I should have been married by a certain age or whatever the case may
Mhm.
be. But yeah, in that society, if you didn't have kids, if you didn't, and especially if you, I think I even heard one day, like, if you just had like a bunch of daughters, they like really didn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the sons matter. You
Mhm.
know, so in that society, it's no tellings what they thought of gay people. Is no tellings. But in the matter of having kids, that's what they kind of got married for.
Mm-hmm.
Marriages were arranged, if I'm not mistaken, and you got married to have kids.
And
That
some
was your
religions
purpose.
is still arranged.
Right,
To a point.
right, right. You got married to have kids, and if that marriage didn't produce kids, that marriage back then was considered no good.
Mm-hmm.
And even now, it's an issue if straight couples don't have kids. You know what I'm saying? It's an
Mhm.
issue there. And I'm like, and I think that's what they were arguing about with the gay marriage thing. You know, well, you can't produce kids. What about all those straight marriages that don't produce kids? Is their marriage invalid too?
I mean, but the thing is, and this is the reason how come I feel, because I heard another minister on YouTube say it, that you know, a whole lot of people, they always try to say that, you know, there's no difference in between someone who's homosexual and someone who's a fornicator or someone who lies or someone who steals or whatever, because sin is sin. No, according to the scripture, what I believe, to me, all sin is not always just all sin. It's certain things or certain sins that are greater than others. The only reason how come, and this minister explained it, that he said that he feels, according to the scripture, that homosexuality is greater than a whole lot of other sins, is because it is strictly anti-creation. Because if a man and woman get together, it's a slight chance, I mean, you know, that something could happen. I mean, plus you have a whole lot of techniques nowadays. You know, you have the vitro fertilization and, you know, some other things. And if a man has a low sperm count, there's certain things that, you know, he can even do. So a man and a woman can, especially nowadays with technology, can produce a child. But two women or two men can't produce anything at all. So that's how come he said it was a greater sin, because it's anti-Christ, because it's anti-creation. Okay. That's why he explained it like that, just the way it is. That's how come he considered that to be, you know, most people do consider that to be greater. in certain ways. And I can understand that other things are like wrong or whatever, but he said that's like the most wrongest thing a person could ever do because it is anti-creation. And that's the only reason why it is a greater sin than, a whole lot of the other ones.
Well, I mean, I understand how he explained it and everything like that, but to be honest with you, myself, when I had a husband, I didn't want any kids by him.
Well, maybe that's because I don't know how come you would want any kids by him, but maybe that's just how you were wired, or maybe you saw certain things in him that made you not want to be able. Because if you have a child by somebody, you're going to be connected to the same person for the next 21 years, and that's too long for some people.
Yeah.
So maybe you saw certain things to keep you from being connected and everything with this person like that. So I guess maybe you had to go on and move on to something or someone that made you feel happy. So even though you are consider yourself to be bisexual, in a same-sex relation, if some people probably would ask too, how could you consider yourself to be bisexual but yet be in a same or marry somebody and be in a fully committed same-sex relationship?
Well, I see myself, I think when it comes to stuff like this, it's all about understanding. You know what I'm saying? Because sometimes people have a tendency to be angry at things and people they do not understand. And that's all right. They got a right to be non-understanding or whatever. That's fine. I'm not here to change nobody's opinion about how they feel about gay people and gay marriage and all that type of stuff. That's not for me to do. That's for that person to do. And
you explained it to me one time, but to me it's something I think it made a whole lot of sense that you said that because you like both, because bisexual does mean that you like both, that you will find men attractive as well as women. And it's like that you said that you are committed to whoever it is you're with. So you said that if after your first marriage broke up, you said if you would have found a nice, decent man and everything to commit to, you said that's something you would have done. But you were open. You said if you would have found a woman to commit to, you said that's something you would have done. Right. And that's something that you did do. So, do you think that is a little bit better than your first marriage, even though it's a same-sex marriage? Do you think that it's any better? And do you think that same-sex marriages are any different than, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't want to say normal or regular. I don't want to use that word.
Okay.
I really don't, because I don't want to come off as just like being biased. Right. But I'm going to say a nuclear marriage, or like a nuclear family of a man, woman, child, or something like that. Do you think it is any different?
Well, I think, it's different because it's two of the same gender. But as far as problems a couple may have,
right, that's what I'm getting to.
It's really no different. Just like just like certain people in my wife's family don't care too much for me. But on the other hand, my mother didn't like the husband I had. So it can go, to me, it can go either way.
And I've dated, of course, even I've never been married, I've still dated women or something who might have had families who, I wouldn't necessarily say certain ones who didn't care for me, because I would have to say, out of my many years of dating, I've never had that problem. I think that, other people, in their family and stuff usually liked me, but I'm pretty sure some who had their questions, or if they didn't like me, I didn't know anything about it. But I think that can go on like anywhere.
Yeah, it can.
In any time. And you always say that you all have your problems. It could be financial and that kind of thing sometimes too, you think?
Yeah, definitely so. I think all couples, when it comes to money, all couples have those type of problems. It's either somebody spending too much or there's not enough to spend.
For anybody to spend.
For anybody to spend. So yeah.
And do you think that as far as like even getting along in a same-sex marriage, do you think that in a same-sex marriage, do you think that you get along more, or do you get along less, or is it about the same, or just like anybody else?
It can be like anybody else. I know as far as our, my wife and our relationship, I feel it's a little bit better for me because I can be myself. And it's not, and putting all the gay stuff aside or whatever, I can be myself.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to walk on eggshells to get along with her.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to go through all these different changes,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and that makes me feel happy. I feel good about that because I can finally be me. And then I mess around and found a church where I can truly be me and be, you know, spiritual Christian or whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
And as far as the church goes,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, as far as like talking about money and, you know, these kind of things, I mean, do you believe that that's right? Because, I mean, I think that the church itself, and one of my main goals in doing part 12 was to talk about, I think the church, or at least certain pastors, you know, the Creflo Dollars and, you know, all of the, and T.D. Jakeses and stuff of the world,
Mm-hmm.
need to focus much more, I think, on living right and Christian conduct
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
than they do on the kind of money that a ministry gets or receives.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how do you feel about that?
I mean, they should care about the people.
Mm-hmm.
In mega churches like that, I know somebody is being neglected.
Yeah.
I know. You know, and I guess I'm kind of from the old school where you grew up in a small church and you had access to the minister.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, what I wrote in a paper about 6 or 7 years ago, sometimes even that wasn't always true. So
Yeah, because some of these pastors who have big churches, I mean, it's like you can't even get too close to them or something. There's one certain pastor, he flies in every single Sunday on a private helicopter, comes into the service, sings, you know, gets up there and just sings and does a sermon, and then, you know, during the time the offering is being taken up before they let out a regular service, you know, this so-called security detail he has to put him on his helicopter and has flown him out of there.
wow.
I mean, do you think that that's always right and stuff, that pastors do seem like they do this kind of stuff not to connect with people? I mean, they travel every single places and entourages, and they don't want anyone on the outside even touching the pastor. If you reach over to want to touch the pastor, shake the pastor's hand, you'll have somebody from his security team maybe slap your hand. I mean, do you believe that all of that is right?
No. No, not absolutely. To me, it's not right.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the pastor is a human being.
Right.
And we get it. We put them up on these, to me, we put them up on all these pedestals that they have no business on.
Yeah, too much so if you ask me.
You know, and sorry about that. That's just my wife passing through.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, we put them up on these pedestals and we give them all this power.
Yeah.
What is up with all this power? You know, like it's so much so if you can say something about somebody pastor, that person
Oh
will
yeah,
go off on you.
But the person
like
will be, but the person will act like you talked about their dead mama or something.
Yeah, they'll go off on you because we give them all this power. Like I remember reading a book about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
Mm-hmm.
and it discussed his faults and his, you know, shortcomings and all that.
And I kind of know what book you're talking about. A whole lot of people was pissed off when they found out
Right.
that book came out.
Yeah.
And actually, because this book, and I do have to, since I've heard it and I've seen a couple of things, but since I don't know whether it's completely true, to avoid pissing some of you all off out there, I'm gonna say allegedly. That they said that allegedly that, you know, he had one side to the public, but allegedly he had a double life.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You know, to where they said that, you know, he had or a few adulterous affairs, and the FBI even caught him on tape, and, you know, with a woman who was other than his wife, allegedly. I have to say allegedly because I wasn't there. I wasn't born in 1960 something, so I really don't know if that's true, and I was not in the room with them, so I just have to say allegedly.
Right.
So
And
people got upset and everything just about that.
I mean, it was surprising now, but then again, you got to think about it. The man was human.
He's a person.
Right. He was human, and he had faults, he had shortcomings, and then the caption underneath the picture said, people made him a bigger man than he was.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah, we do make our pastors bigger people than they really
Especially, I noticed with
Yeah.
even in the black community, especially because, I mean, people did that with Martin Luther King. People did that with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. People did that with Malcolm X. And now, people are doing it with President Obama. Because anytime that, you know, because I guess black people in this country have been down and put down and let down so much and so hard that whenever a black person comes along and can, you know, promise to do them good or promise to do like certain things to help them, black people, they misinterpret the fact that this person is only just a man. They look at the fact or start to look at him as almost being a Messiah figure. And do you think that the church or people, especially within the black community, have made that mistake as to putting up a man to look like a Messiah?
Yeah, I definitely do. And let's see, I remember someone telling me about a pastor I used to be under. I was a little kid. And, you know, he was real good about coming, and it's in my paper, you know, I can just talk about from memory.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, he was a pretty good guy. So, you know, so I thought, you know,
Mm-hmm.
far as I can see,
Mm-hmm.
you know, when you got sick or what have you, you know, he would come by and visit you.
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed that, you know, basically he had moved on out of the ministry that we were in. And my auntie had got real sick, you know, and we was, you know, trying to get him to come over to read the scripture with her, pray with her, talk with her. And it was kind of like pulling teeth.
Mm-hmm.
Because he felt that if you were one of his members, he didn't feel that he had any responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
But my auntie had worked on tirelessly, he worked on the pastor's aid committee. So there was history there, there was friendship there.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, getting them to come to see my auntie at her sickest day was like pulling teeth.
And in bigger churches, I mean, they even take less care. And I mentioned it in the video that some of these people could actually have, they want to talk about living in big cars and homes and want to walk around in $1,000 suits and $200 shoes and this kind of stuff. But some of these people could have their own congregation members around them that might need to eat. And they could know
That's
that
right.
wouldn't give you a dime, wouldn't give you anything.
That's right.
Because it's all about making the minister, you know, rich and that kind of thing. But the thing is, stuff, if you want to look at it on the other hand, maybe you should every now and then, you know, give a pastor something, because it does also say in the scriptures that a pastor gives us his spiritual, so we should give him, you know, some of our carnal. So it does say that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that some pastors have abused that biblical principle. And do you think that that has led to the downfall of, you know, certain things about the church? And do you think that this is something, this constant begging and this constant emphasis on money, do you think that this has also kept people away from the church, rightfully or wrongly?
I think so. Well, I don't know if it was you that said it or somebody else that said it where you, I think it was you that said it where it said it costs too much to go to church.
Yeah, I said that in the video. It is. It does.
And it's like, I can remember a few pastors I was under using the scripture where it said, well, if you don't give, you're cursed with a curse. And I'm just put this out there. I know when they say when you tithe, you'll never be broke.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of beg to differ.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Why do you think you feel like that?
Because, I mean, it's life. Okay, let's say for instance you make $600 a month. Okay, and you got bills to pay. Some folks might have families to take care of. And let's say you do make an effort to give your tithes. At the end of the day, your pocket still might have butterflies coming out of it. So I'm just bad to differ. Now the minister, you know what I'm saying, I have to say a lot of them do benefit from all that extra money that they might want you to get.
And they talk about you'll never be broke. No. And a whole lot of these
He
big
will
churches,
never be
they'll never be broke.
They will never be broke.
You might be,
right?
but he'll never be broke.
Right. You know, and I know. When I was a kid, you know, I was a tither and everything. I didn't even know I was tithing. You know what I'm saying? I got like $5 a week allowance, and I was given $1. So I wouldn't even know. I didn't even know I was tithing. But as I come up or whatever, even though, you know, I tithed and everything because I wanted to give. You know, then nobody had to force me to give nothing. Then nobody had to quote no scripture. I wanted to give. But all I know is now I'm on a fixed income, and I know most preachers out there will say who fixed it, but I'm on a fixed income, and right now it's hard for me to tithe. I might as well put that. It's just hard because I mean I got rent to pay. You know, I have things I need to do around the house. You know, we got to get backwards and forth. And then
on CTA, with the amount of CTA is charging, that ain't easy.
Right, and then matter of fact, I got a wife and a cat to take care of. We even feeding the cat. So by the time I get through paying this, paying that, I really don't have it. And I think one minister that was on TV said something that really made sense. He was like, well, if you don't have money to tithe, use that money to take care of yourself. You know what I'm saying? And he didn't get cracked down on people saying, well, you should tithe no matter what. That's another thing they teach you too. You should tithe no matter what.
Yeah.
And you can't always do that.
And sometimes I question it or something, because do you believe that when it comes down to giving, especially tithing, do you think that tithing should be only on earned income or anything that you get, meaning like if you get like a government check or a government pension or that kind of thing, or should it just strictly be earned income, meaning that only if you have like a business or a job or something like that?
I mean, if you can tithe. You know, if you're able to do it, do it. But make sure your heart is right when you do it. I think that's the whole thing right there. You know, you can give $1 million in church, but if your heart is not right, then you might as well not give anything.
In other words, meaning or something, because some people they do it because they really mean it, but other ones just doing it for a show.
Yes. You know, if you
used to
can
say,
tithe,
oh man, look what I've done. I just gave $1 million to the church. Who cares? You know?
Right, you know, you should tithe.
Because some people who I think of something who's giving in church or something who's lined up giving big amounts in church. I mean, because us as people, I believe that we don't know like the inner intentions of a person.
Right.
Or what they really, really mean, or you know what their heart is like. But God says, you know, because God is looking from heaven, and God said He knows the heart. So I think a whole lot of those people who's lining up in churches everywhere across this city and this country, even across this world, who's giving big amounts, God is sitting back saying He don't even want their money. Because their heart is not right when they're doing it. Because some people are doing it for a show.
Yeah.
And I just don't believe that is right. And as far as a pastor goes, now I noticed that you brought a paper with you on pastoral care. You know, and so read some excerpts from what you think a pastor from pastoral care or of pastoral care is, or exactly what kind of paper is this that you did write.
Okay, well, the paper I wrote, I think this is like 6 or 7 years old. It's somewhere in there. And it talked about, when I was at Church for Me, this was from the MCC, Metropolitan Community Churches, and I was interested in joining the pastoral care ministry, and we all had to submit a paper saying perhaps what pastoral care is or not, and at the end say what would we have to offer if we were to join the ministry, and at the end, you know, I put what I would offer based on, you know, what I wrote. Let's see. Well, since we're talking about, let's see. Well, one I wrote about, this was a pastor that played favorites. And I remember, got a
whole lot of them who do it.
Right, and I'm reminded of the time when my grandmother was sick. This was back in 2003.
Okay.
She was real sick. You know, my grandmother died at 98 years old, so she.
Yeah, I think I remember.
Yeah, she was real sick, and I noticed that he didn't come back to see her nor his wife, nobody from the family came by to see her.
Or nobody from that representing that church.
Right, nobody representing the church.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, he had to be forced or compelled to come by and see her.
Mm-hmm.
And, he had this look on his face. Like he was so uncomfortable to be there. Like, this ain't what I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
He just had this look on his face. I just kept looking at him like, really? Really? I just kept looking at him. And when my grandmother died, nobody from that family was there to represent the family at my grandmother's funeral.
No one from that church family. Is that what you mean by family, or
no? From his personal family.
Okay.
Only thing he told my mother was like, I felt in my heart that she had passed away, and the excuse was, and this is in my paper, that he had to take his son to college. Now, one of your members dies, and you got to take your son to college. Now, I can see one person taking the boy to college, but the whole family. Somebody from his family should have been there and say, we sorry for your loss, and, if you need us, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But when one of his favorite members got sick, he literally
was all in.
Right, he gave us, he basically stood in the pulpit and gave a tirade about why didn't we go see this particular person in a nursing home, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And I just couldn't believe it. And I was like, when my grandmother was sick, he didn't go off like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt kind of bad about that, because I'm like, this is one of your members here. And the same way I felt about, the minister that we had to actually maybe practically beg him to go see my auntie when she was sick. I felt bad, about that too, because I'm like, really? It just made me feel, bad. Matter of fact, the head minister of the ministry, when she read this paper, said she can tell that I had been through a lot of pain as far as ministers. And I have, because I'm thinking like, you may not be perfect, but you can at least try to do what you're supposed to do. And I hate to put it out there, but one of the functions of a minister is that if one of your members gets sick, you or somebody that represents you is supposed to be there for that person.
I mean, and that's pretty key that you would say it, because personally, I went through that a few years ago when I was in a nursing home,
right,
with my old church, that no one came to see me and everything. Matter of fact, the pastor's wife talked crap to me on the phone when I'm on my day of surgery, that kind of thing.
See.
And I mean, so I've been through it, and as a whole and everything, I would have to say not only me, but our whole family and everything has been through it. Because at one time, my mom always used to tell us that no matter what, you never ever say anything bad about or talk down on a minister or a pastor or whoever. My mother tells me today she don't feel like that no more. Because she said these pastors and ministers, they are not doing their job or not doing what they're supposed to be doing. So she's like, no, she don't feel like that anymore. Because she said churches and pastors and ministers have completely failed our family. I mean, right now, a whole lot of stuff that even my parents went through in church. Here in Chicago is bad, and then they go and move out of state to a whole other state and have to go through some of the same stuff again with other churches. And it's not just a black thing, because the town that they moved to was basically kind of like a more of a white town. So these are more white churches. So the people are still acting like some of the same way. And these are white folks. So right now, my parents are elderly and don't even belong to a church at all. And they said that one thing that they hate is having to grow old and having to even pass away without even having a church home.
Wow.
And it's like to the point now that my mother, she said that she wrote it down, that she says that she and my father want me and my brother to hold their funeral and actually eulogize them. Because usually a pastor would give like a eulogy or a final blessing over a person who has passed on. But she'd rather me and my little brother eulogize them, because she said none of them, why are you going to have people who to preach over you and eulogize you, who never cared anything about you.
Right.
You know that's you know, they didn't have any kind of love for you when, or you know, support when you were alive. But when you maybe died, you know, some of them and everything were there, but you weren't there during the living years. You didn't know how to treat a person during the living years, but yet you want that same person to eulogize you? No, that wouldn't be intelligent.
Right.
So, I mean, so I guess you echo the same sentiments maybe as my mother. But what else do you think that a pastor should do besides just like maybe going to see the sick or whatever?
Well, I think...
According to, you know, what you wrote.
I think they should also be approachable.
Mm-hmm.
I must say that since I've been in the ministry that I'm in, you know, right now I'm not active because we had to move to the south side and yada, yada, yada. I have to say, for the second time in my life, I actually have a pastor that I have a relationship with, which means they should be approachable. You ought to be able to come to them and talk to them, and they truly listen to you and actually help you. You know, if they can. You know what I'm saying? There's been times so that where, you know, I needed somebody to talk to. You know, she was there and everything like that. But the ministers I grew up under, I couldn't have dreamed of coming to them, talking to them about my problems, because they just didn't seem approachable. So I think ministers ought to be approachable. They ought to care about the people. They ought to live simply, for one thing. The pastor I got now, she ain't walking around no $300-400 dresses.
And now, when you talk about simply, what exactly do you mean by that?
Live having what you need. And the way my philosophy is, I don't care if I don't have nothing but a nickel in my pocket. As long as my bills are paid, I'm eating, I'm sleeping, whatever.
So you're against a pastor, maybe against
living extravagantly, stuff that they don't need.
Yeah, in other words, a pastor, you know, having like 3 and 4 houses and driving around in Rolls Royces and Bentleys and Mercedes Benzes and has like 9 or 10 cars, which is so stupid, because even if it was him and his wife, you can only drive 2 cars, drive one at a time. What the heck are you doing with 9 or 10 cars for?
Or it's 3 of you and you got a mansion with 15 and 20 rooms in it. I mean, live within. And a
helicopter, their own private jet, their own yachts.
Right, and you know, like you were saying in another broadcast that Jesus was poor. You know, he didn't even have a place to. He didn't even have a place to lay his head. Somebody said in the Bible that they wanted to.
But how do you feel about this lie that certain prosperity preachers have perpetrated over the years, trying to say Jesus was rich? Because I actually have a cousin of mine who actually believes that. He actually told me Jesus had a bag full of money. And the reason why Judas even got in trouble with Jesus and the rest of the disciples is because Judas was going in the bag stealing all the money. And I know the Bible doesn't say anything about Jesus having no bag full of money.
Right. Jesus was, for what I understand, Jesus was poor. I mean, and as far as when we died, we don't even know where he stayed. We don't know what he had. We just don't know. All we know is that he was basically, well, they say a carpenter, but let's say he worked for a living at some point in time. We know that. You know, his father might have trained him in the field that he was in.
Yeah, because that was part, you talk about the old Jewish Mosaic law. Under the Jewish Mosaic law, if your father was like a carpenter, he taught you that. Yeah, because they, you know, your role as a Jewish father was to spread that, trait or whatever your profession was to your sons.
Right.
You know, that way if your father was a carpenter, you were a carpenter. If your, father or something was a farmer, that's usually like what you were.
Right.
And, so that's basically how it went. And how do you feel about all of these preachers, especially here in Chicago, who are into politics?
Well, I feel preachers already have an office. What do you need a public office for? You already have an office, and if you was concentrate on pastoring and stuff like that, you know, you might find that you don't have no time to be off into politics. Now, like I said, businesses should care about what's going on in their community. Hopefully, should want to get involved and try to change things.
But I'm talking about as far as like supporting a candidate. What I'm trying to get to a little bit,
okay,
is trying to talk about our past election from about close to a month ago, as you know, that we here in the state of Illinois, we do have a new governor-elect, Bruce Rauner.
Yeah.
Who is a Republican, but we had a whole lot of black preachers who supported him. He came in one church, one black preacher, shook his hand. Oh, God bless you, sir. Stinking, filthy, dirty, low-down Baptist crook. But you had a whole lot of these pastors support Rauner. Wow. How do you feel about these black ministers supporting someone like a Bruce Rauner when the agenda of Bruce Rauner does not even line up with the people who sit in the pews of the congregation that these pastors serve?
Well, I feel you should support a candidate, you know, that line up with the rules of the Bible. First of all, you know what I'm saying? If they, because the Bible tell you about the poor folks, if you reproach the poor, you reproach the maker.
And Rauner, as far as certain things I've seen about Rauner, something he is against poor people.
Right, you know, so that's
some of his policies
out right there, right?
Even though he says that he's not. But I mean, come on now. I mean, you know, you can't look at always what I know, and I believe that you can't always look at what a person says. You got to look at like what they believe and what they do. Because I could sit up here and say something. I'm a white man, but I'd be lying. I mean, even though he said he doesn't hate or against poor people, some of his policies, you know, like wanting to end the minimum wage for one, or wanting a lower minimum wage.
Oh wow.
You know, these kind of policies. Wanting to cut every single body or a whole lot of people off of government aid. You know, those kind of policies. I mean, how do you feel about a pastor who could get behind a man like this?
Well, I feel that they misguided. If to me, any candidate or any leader, period, that would just basically harm the people and stuff like that should not be supported. I mean, because by right, the people put you there. You're supposed to be working for the people. You know, you're supposed to be working for the people. And so, like, I think I was watching one movie where it said, and it really resonates with me right now, and I have to say it. Let's just say the government, Senate, whatever, shouldn't be. The people shouldn't be afraid of the leaders. The leaders should be afraid of the people. Because
the reason why it was said like that, because the leaders are supposed to work for you.
For the people, right.
Because us as the people, really, they're the servants, but us as the people are supposed to be the masters.
Right, because we put them there. You know,
they work for you. Just like the police department works for you. The fire department work for you. Our U.S. Armed Forces work for you. These people work for you.
Right. And yeah,
you have a whole lot of black ministers who supported him, and I just think of something. It wasn't because they, you know, are really supporting him because they wanted a change. Because it's certain people, and yeah, I'm gonna call his name because I mean it's the truth that Reverend James T. Meeks, who's a former Illinois state senator here in Illinois, he said that he supported him because he was tired of the promises that the Democratic Party was giving to people, and especially black people in particular, and not carrying it completely through. So that's how come him and some of these other pastors chose to support Bruce Rauner, because they said that they just wanted to do something different. And I can understand doing something different, but I just think, and don't you feel that the difference in between someone like Pat Quinn and someone like Bruce Rauner, it was like a major radical difference?
I mean,
a big difference, in other words?
I mean, maybe he could do something for Illinois. I don't know. All I know is I didn't support him.
I doubt it.
Yeah, I didn't support him. But wait, let's face it. All politicians make a bunch of promises. Sometimes they carry through. Sometimes they don't.
Mm-hmm.
So we just have to live with that. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So who knows what might happen or whatever, but I just hate the fact that if he's against the people like us that's sitting up here on fixed incomes, trying to survive, I just hope that he don't, cut all the services that are needed for people who are poor.
And
like us.
And with Bruce Rodner, I mean, to me, he's already exhibited the fact that he has a potential to lie, because when he made his acceptance speech, he said that he had gotten in touch and spoke personally with 2 Democrats who were in the Illinois Senate, but come to find out later on that it was one of his aides who tried to reach out to these 2 people that he mentioned, and the aide got an answer machine, so he did not talk directly to these 2 Democrats like he said that he did. So even in that, now some people will call that like a small lie or white lie or whatever, but he's already exhibited the fact that he has a little bit of a problem with the truth. So do you think that that is going to be a problem? If you got a problem with the truth is something small, don't you think a person like this going to have a problem with the truth is something big, like like where you mentioned, like where it really, really matters?
Right. I think so. All politicians lie.
Mm-hmm.
All of them. Every last one of them. It's just, I think, like I say, not written in stone, I think Democrats, they're just the lesser of the 2 evils.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I think, because all of them lie. All of them make promises. And, if they, like I say, they carry through. I mean, every politician has their own agenda.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody comes with an agenda. Everybody got different takes on the laws and Constitution and all that type of stuff. So, in the end, like I put on Facebook, no matter who you choose in the voting booth, the people still lose.
I mean, with me or something, I think when I found out that Bruce Rodner became the governor-elect, that's the first time I ever went on Facebook and actually cussed. Because I just couldn't believe it. I could not actually see that coming. And everybody knows that whenever you get a Republican in office, that the people always suffer.
Yeah,
and I just cannot believe that some of these black pastors here in Chicago actually supported Bruce Rodner. And I think if I belonged to any one of their churches, I wouldn't be going back to that church anymore.
Wow.
No. And maybe you wouldn't either.
No, not nowadays, for putting somebody in place that's gonna do more harm than good. Then no.
Mm-hmm.
And then again, it could be a lot of pastors. They benefit. They making money too. So what do they care about them general?
Yeah, he probably broke them off a little something, for doing it. Come on now, you think of something that some of these people actually supported this guy for nothing? Come on now, give me a break.
Right. I mean, hey, I wouldn't be surprised. I would not be surprised. But hey.
It happens.
Yes. Point blank, yeah.
In closing, since we're about to get ready to get up out of here, as far as to sum it all up,
mm-hmm.
what do you feel like, in summary, what do you think that the duties of our nation, as far as the church and everything and pastors, is just supposed to be, and what they should be doing to make these things that we talk about a whole lot better?
Something that a family member of mine said kind of echoes in my head right now.
Mm-hmm.
Love your neighbor as yourself,
mm-hmm.
and love God with everything that you got,
mm-hmm.
and follow them 10 commandments.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you love God, you're not going to hurt your neighbor. If you love your neighbor, you're not going to mess around on your spouse. If you do that, matter of fact, let's see, what I got here. When it's speaking of love your neighbor, I got this from church yesterday.
Uh-huh.
And it talked about peace.
Mm-hmm.
Gotta find the page. Okay. Gotta find the page. Why can't I find the page? But it talked about if there is to be peace. Oh yeah, here it is. Okay. It talked about peace. It said if there is to be peace, if there is to be peace in the world, there must be peace in the nations.
Mm-hmm.
If there is to be peace in the nations, there must be peace in the cities.
Mm-hmm.
If there is to be peace in the cities, there must be peace in between neighbors.
Mm-hmm.
If there is to be peace between neighbors, there must be peace in the home.
Mm-hmm.
And if there is to be peace in the home, there must be peace in the heart.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that leaders and everybody else need to work for the common good of the people. You know, we supposed to be striving for peace. We supposed to be helping each other. We supposed to be take care of the poor, take care of those who can't help themselves.
Uh-huh.
We supposed to be trying to give God glory, and we supposed to be the salt of the earth, where we bring out the best, you know, the best in everything.
That's what salt does. It brings out that hidden flavor of all
right.
food.
We supposed to bring out the best.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we need to be living for. Put our best foot forward, and then maybe we might be worthy of all this prosperity in heaven and everything they talk about so much.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Right. But meanwhile, I would like to. It's been a long time coming. I'd like to thank you for coming on and being my guest today on Roosevelt Sounds Off. And for all of you all out there who are my friends, be sure to comment, be sure to watch and share, and make sure that you subscribe. And I guess I'll see you all later on another episode of Roosevelt Sounds Off. Peace.
Take care.